everyone, this is your host Prasha, and welcome to her STEM Stories episode number 85. If you're just joining us, make sure to follow us on social media at her STEM Story and tag us in your posts. Today we're talking to a tiny but mighty scientist, Tori. Her dream ever since childhood was to go to grad school, which I think is super interesting. So let's get started.
Welcome to Her STEM Story, a podcast about real women with extraordinary science, technology, engineering, and mathematics stories. In this show, we'll talk to some absolutely inspiring women and highlight some women-led organizations in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We'll learn more about their work, their struggles, and how they think we can close the gender gap in STEM professions. Keep listening to get inspired.
Our guest today is Tori Quintana, who graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Cellular and Molecular Biology from Fort Lewis College. She's currently pursuing PhD at University of Arizona. She loves to hike and she has an ultimate passion for teaching. She will talk to us about her STEM story and will tell us how she persevered through college applications. So if you're planning to apply to grad school or to PhDs, please keep listening because she has some wonderful tips for you. So let's learn more about Tori's energetic STEM story. Thank you so much, Tori, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is so exciting. So you got nominated through our STEM Squad recommendations, and we asked for nominations from our people on the STEM Squad saying, who do you want to see on the show? And it was an exciting thread because there were so many wonderful women, and we got like 25 submissions, and I want to interview all of them, of course, but I had to start with picking a few. And the reason I picked you was because I would say, like, definitely because of your name on Instagram. It's definitely like very unique. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So tell our audience what the name is and what does that mean?
So my handle on Instagram is Tiny But Mighty Scientist. And I had been thinking about starting a science type Instagram to document my journey through graduate school for a long time, since I knew that was something that I was going to pursue, whether it be a year after I graduated or right after. Mm-hmm. And so, I was, in class one day thinking about like, what's a good handle for me? And if you meet me in person, you know that I'm a pretty tiny human. Mm-hmm. I'm 5'2". I'm like, people just know me for being tiny or small. Mm-hmm. And so, but they always think of me as being a very loud person. Like, I'm very enthusiastic. I like to make people know that I'm there. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, what about Tiny But Mighty Scientist? And I said it in my head and I just couldn't get it out of my head. And after that, I thought that was like my perfect name. And it's really stuck. So that's kind of like the little backstory of my Instagram handle.
Yeah, that's awesome, Tori. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I just graduated college. I got my degree in cellular and molecular biology. I went to school at Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. And I have wanted to go to grad school since I was like a baby. I knew that, I was taught from a really young age that education was like the key to success. So no matter what I did, whether I was a doctor or a dancer or an artist, that just continuing education was the goal of my life. Mm-hmm. And so once I kind of got my foundation of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a teacher, a science teacher, I knew that going to grad school was going to help me get to where I wanted to be. So I applied to graduate school and I got into a PhD program at the University of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be starting this August, and I will be doing cancer biology.
Oh,
And so my program, I haven't found an advisor yet or anything like that. I'll be doing rotations, but I'm very excited. This is, something that I feel super, super passionate about, and I can't wait.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me, was it your parents that were into education? Was it any other influence from school? But what kind of, because I've never heard anyone say that I always wanted to go to grad school. Like, like I think people have, usually the typical answer will be, oh, I always wanted to be a scientist, or I always wanted to, explore the earth or something, whatever. But in terms of that, like I've literally never heard someone say that they didn't want to go to grad school. So you seem really passionate about it, but I'm just curious, like what was that external, kind of influence or role models that you were exposed to growing up?
Right. So my dad actually has his PhD in mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, my parents made it very prominent in our lives to know that going to graduate school was going to help us pursue any career we wanted. So my mom used to joke about this when I was little, that I couldn't get married until I finished my PhD. So and it was a way for me to, just focus on school and not worry about boys or anything like that. But just at a young age, they kind of hammered in that just going to school as far as you possibly can, whether that be like a master's program or a PhD program, or just, going to college, that it wasn't even like an expectation. It was just, you're going to do it no matter what, because that's, they just knew that was going to help us, in life, in anything that we wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful, because I think that's so important, because that's just how things are where I'm from in India. And, when people say, oh, you did engineering, I said, that's what I was supposed to do. Like, there is no other, there's no like questioning it. And I think part of it is of course, people take it to extreme, but I think if you do it in a healthy way, you set your kids for success. Like you make sure that they are self-dependent, and then they are financially stable, which is a huge reason why I do the show, because I want women to be financially stable, not to have to wait for someone to pay their bills. And it's just something that we really need in the society if we want women to come forward and do the things they need to do. But it starts with parents like yours. So congratulations to your parents for being so
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you're totally right. I think it's all about creating the expectation that you don't need anyone else to depend on. You are more than capable of going out and being your own advocate, and pursuing whatever you want to do, and having that open to you.
Yeah.
So and thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say thank you for having this podcast to show, that, we are more than capable of doing it all by ourselves. And
and I think parents play a huge role. Like again, we just, we don't have to look too far to really find role models, because our parents can be our biggest role models, even if they may not be in STEM. Your parents don't have to be engineers or scientists or doctors. Like my parents were not engineers, but it's just the teachings or the way they lived their lives. We could have
exactly
that. And you don't realize it till you're like 20, 25 years old.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that they're so awesome. So that's amazing. So I really wanted to know a little bit about your younger self. Like, what was it like being the little Tori and going around? Like, were you always curious, or what kind of got you particularly interested in the field that you're pursuing now?
It's a great question. I think like every young kid, we have, multiple dreams that we want to pursue. And when I was really little, I wanted to be like a doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician. And I thought I wanted to go to med school because I loved kids. I loved working with kids. And I also really loved, or I was just so interested in the way the body worked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom would tell me stories of me going to the doctor and the doctor letting me use his stethoscope and listening to my heart, or just like me asking questions about what he was doing and why he was doing it. And then I remember my parents giving me like books about the human body and me just reading them and asking questions. And so I think initially it was just the interest of how and why we worked the way we did. So for a really long time, I thought I was going to be a doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to work with kids. And I just thought that was like I got the best of both worlds. But I've always loved the outdoors. I've always loved plants. I've loved trees. I remember when I was younger, I would just go outside and just sit by this tree and just look at it. Mm-hmm. And talk with it, and it was like my best friend. So I've always been really connected with just why things work, especially every sort of life form, every organism. I used to cry when my parents would kill bugs outside, and so I was very attracted to just the way life was. And then it wasn't until I was in high school where I really dove into biology and like the cellular basis of biology. And I just fell in love with learning about the things that you cannot see, but that were still going on. And then in college, I really found love in genetics and understanding why things are the way they are and how things turn out. And I started doing research, and then I just fell in love with research. Mm-hmm. It was just, I was in my own world. I could just go into the deep depths of, you know, the databases and find everything I possibly could, and then go into the lab and see it for myself. And then I knew that med school wasn't the path for me, that I wanted to be like a researcher. I wanted to just learn as much as I possibly could about everything that I found interesting.
Yeah.
And then yeah, that's a good timeline.
That's awesome. No, I think it's always a tough question because, you know, a lot of us have this curiosity. We may not have exactly know what it is that attracts us to certain things. And it's always interesting to see how kind of life unfolds. And the reason I ask this question a lot is because I want people to know that you don't need to know everything right from the beginning. You know, you just need to keep following that little bit of curiosity and see how it all unfolds, you know, instead of, you know, getting stuck into, oh my God, I need to know today what exactly I want to do with my life. Like nobody knows, you know, everyone's kind of winging it, but you know, and there's just the more examples we hear, the more stories we hear, I feel like we feel okay not knowing where we are going in the long term, like in the bigger picture. And it's always hard, like when you're a teenager, when you're just out of college, you have too many distractions and your hormones are all crazy. So that doesn't help either. So I know you have went through a little bit of a struggle in your life. And, you know, a lot of this show is based on talking more about struggles and how people manage to get out of them because we can't avoid struggles. So I want to ask you, you know, during your, you mentioned that during your application process, it was a whole 1 year, which was a difficult time, but also while you were going to undergrad, you had to, you know, obviously keep up your grades, but also work and, you know, kind of support yourself. So tell us, what was that one thing you learned from that experience of balancing your student life with your personal life?
You know, there are so many things that I learned during that period of time. like many students, I think, we're all juggling so many different things, whether it be
Yeah.
work, school, internships, friendships, family. There's so many things going on. And the biggest thing for me was just learning to keep going, just persevering and not giving up on, the end goal that you really want to get to. And I think a lot of times we get stuck in like those moments of just of turmoil where nothing seems to be going right, that it's just a really hard day or hard week or a hard month where you're just kind of going through the days, and it just seems like things are kind of getting worse.
Yeah.
But just, having, the mindset that like, if you just keep on going, if you don't give up, like these things will be okay. Like you're going to be fine. Just, you have to believe in yourself, and keep on looking at like the light at the end of the tunnel, because you'll get there.
Yeah.
It may seem like forever, but it's, I remember going, through a hard couple months, and sometimes you're in these like situations alone where you don't have like the best support system, or you're just kind of separated from everyone for a little bit, and it's really hard. But I think, a really big thing is just, believing in yourself that you can do it, and that persevering is going to be the best for you at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a trait that, Angela Duckworth wrote a book called Grit. And that's something that, her studies show that grit is what separates high performers from mediocres, or people who may not be high performers. And we're not talking about high performers, but even in life, like we need to have grit and perseverance, because that's just the essence of life. I don't know if you don't persevere, like mankind wouldn't be here today. Like, we can't give up. Like that's in our DNA. So we just have to kind of uncover it from all the distractions that coming in, I think for me, I don't know about you, but I think for me, what's the hardest is to like obsessive thinking is what gets extremely I just mess up everything because I'm just constantly focused on this one thought. And have you experienced that?
Oh yes. Like when I try to like you said, you obsess over one thought and you try to do something else, but you can't do it because you're too busy thinking about the other thing.
Yeah. And I think it's just I learned a trick that when you get stuck on that thought, write it down. And every time you think about that thought, you write it down again, and you'll see that all your anxious thoughts are actually questions. They're never answers. And they're hardly answers, because questions are what make us nervous, because we don't know the answer. So it's like, what if this goes wrong? What if he doesn't answer? What if she doesn't say it? What if, so it's always kind of like the what if question and like the worst case scenario. And once you see that it's a question and you try to answer it, that's where like I've learned like anxiety kind of stops, and you can become more like mentally strong, I guess.
Oh, that's so smart. I'll definitely have to try that next time.
So if you like just write a question, like say for example, like what if I don't get a call back or whatever, then you start answering, okay, then I can send them a message, or I can send them an email, or I can do this, and then you'll have 5 options, and then you'll feel way better than just like constantly thinking about that question. So a little detour there. So I know you went through a whole year of applying to grad school and through PhD programs. So tell us a little bit about what people should be wary of while going into that process, because that process is a tough one to say the least. So tell us a little bit about that.
Gosh. So what I didn't know initially about, applying to graduate school or any of that was how long it takes to, apply, or to get ready to apply, then to apply, and then to wait and then to decide. You know, it's about, like you said, a full year process. And I think, you know, the biggest thing for me is just really be prepared to go through a full year of applying. For me, I knew that I wanted to go straight into a graduate program right after I graduated. So I applied during my senior year of college. But I know lots of friends that have to take, you know, a full year off because they want that extra time to prepare and to be ready and to get everything done. And it's very, for me, I'm a big overthinker. I like to plan everything. And so this was a very stressful time for me because you're kind of just like in this unknown state for a whole year. You know, you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what, you know, these graduate schools are looking for. And you kind of, for me, it was a lot of almost self-doubt that I had, that I wasn't prepared enough, that, you know, going into graduate school, you're being competitive with people from all over the country, from different countries. You know, they're all applying for these very specific positions, and you have to try to sell yourself, you know, as a educator, as a teacher, as a student, as a researcher. And you get these thoughts that maybe you're not what they're looking for, that you're not smart enough, maybe your scores aren't good, or you don't have as much research as someone else. And so, you know, I constantly had to remind myself that, you know, I am good enough, that I did my absolute best no matter what happens, that getting into graduate school doesn't say anything about who I am or what I'm going to do. So my biggest advice for anyone who applies to graduate school is just be confident in yourself and your abilities, and that no matter what happens, whether you get in or you don't, or whether this is a difficult time, that, you know, you're going to get through it. And like, no matter what happens, it's for the best. Opportunities sometimes don't come always the times that we need them to come, or that we want them to come, but they will come as long as you know, persevere and you keep going, and you have that confidence and that mindset. You know?
So what was, are there a lot of resources to help prepare for these applications, or are there any free resources or tools online that you came across? Because I feel like one of the things that we all struggle with is, if we are trying to do it by ourselves, is always really hard. And if we can find a community or a group of people who are kind of doing the same thing, that we can feel a little bit more supported. So have you found anything like that?
You know, I didn't. I was lucky enough to have some of my fellow lab mates also apply to grad school at the same time I was. So they were my biggest resource. You know, we would read each other's essays, talk about what graduate schools were good or what kind of fit our criteria. I do know that there are websites that kind of are like a forum type thing, where you can ask questions to, like, anonymously, and other students will answer them, or I'm not sure about like actual resources. I know that to study for like the GRE or other type of standardized tests, there's like free like workbooks online and things like that. A lot of it, unfortunately, you have to pay for them. That I didn't use those. I tried to use as many free websites as I could, but most of it was just I luckily had my lab mates that helped me get through it.
And some colleges also have like a career center or something like that, where you might have like a few people who might help you write your SOP or resume or, that kind of
Exactly.
stuff. So I think people should definitely ask around in their colleges, because a lot of times we don't know that we need help. We think we should know everything,
Hmm.
when the most effective thing I've found is find someone who knows it, ask them how they did it, just copy it. Like, that's
Yes.
it. You
Yes.
benchmark and you go from there, because then you save a lot of time and a lot of resources. But another resource I would mention here would be the STEM Squad. That's an online group on Facebook. That's how kind of we got connected on Instagram, but
Yes.
they have a Facebook group, which is, a good sized Facebook group, about 1,000, 1,500 people, but very, you can ask very specific questions. You can ask, people and women, mostly minorities in STEM, to help you if you need anything of that sort. So definitely check that out too. So, and also you can reach out to Tori. I'm going to volunteer her. No, I'm kidding. But
No, of
yes,
course.
yeah, but yes, at least, I want people to feel supported, because I'm sure you'll agree that, at least when I look back on my life and the toughest times I've had, some of it was same thing, like applying to grad school, applying, moving to the US, looking for a job, those kind of like unknown kind of scenarios. I wish I had people around me who were going through the same thing. Like, that would have made it so much easier, because, that would have made it like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Because when you think it's only you, then you'd start blaming yourself that, you're not good enough. But when you see like there are other people struggling and doing the same thing, you kind of feel less of a, you don't put it on yourself as much.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
you're completely right. Having the support system, you know, going through college and applying to grad school or just any situation is so important in feeling comfortable and okay with,
Yeah.
with what you're going through, and realizing that it's, everyone struggles and it's not just you, and it's normal to have the feelings that you have.
Yeah. And you just
So
embrace it, because, you can't fight it. You got to work with it. So that's something very
exactly.
important. So tell us a little bit, we're going to start wrapping this up, but I really want to know, you said you really, really want to be a teacher. So tell us a little bit about that, and what the future holds for you as a teacher.
So my end goal in life is to be an elementary school science teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned before that I love kids. I absolutely adore them. And, seeing how curious and how excited they are about life just gives me so much hope for like the next generation of young scientists and educators and beautiful people in the world. So my end goal is to help support those dreams of students that have these glowing eyes and the beautiful outlook on life. And
Mm-hmm.
so until then, I do wish to, after I finish graduate school, I want to continue into academia. I do want to teach, I want to go all the way down from college to high school, and then down to elementary school. And I think the biggest thing for me is having or giving students the support that they need to continue their dreams, whatever that may be, whether that be the future scientists of the world, or whether that be to help the future artists or the future mechanics, or whatever it may be. I want to be that person that they can look back on and say, Tori was that support that I needed to get through that time in my life. And so I was grateful enough to have those teachers in my life. And I know that school isn't always the easiest thing for everybody. And I just want kids to know that I want to be that person to help them get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great purpose. I think education and educators are such a huge part of our society. And I remember my first grade teacher, like everyone remembers their elementary teacher. So you're very selfish in this. You want people to remember you.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's really, really sweet. And I think if we have scientists like yourself who are so, of course, so energetic, but also so positive and well read, like if of course, you're going to do your PhD, and then if you then go back to the basics, like really the building blocks of it, they will be able to see the immense potential that a scientist can do in life. So you'll be a great role model as well. So I wish you very best for that goal.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. So I have two questions. And so the first one is, what will be that one thing that people can take away from your story?
It may sound like a broken record, but I truly hope that people can see to persevere and to not give up on their dreams and their goals and their aspirations. Mm-hmm. That no matter where you are in life, whether you see yourself in you're in a different situation, or you just don't feel that you're capable, I want people to know that they are, and mm-hmm. that as long as they keep going and they don't give up, that they'll make it and that they're going to be okay.
Oh, that's beautiful. And what's your favorite book?
My favorite book? My goodness. I love books. Gosh.
Yeah. Take your time. That's always a tricky one. I would be like absolutely a wreck if someone asked me that question. Like I'd be like, no, like I can't. But I still put all my guests through this torture, so.
Gosh, I think
you can pick two.
Okay. Ooh, that makes it harder, I think.
Okay, pick one.
Okay. I think one book that I can constantly reread over and over again is 1,000 Splendid Suns mm-hmm. by, I hope I can pronounce his name correctly, Khaled Hosseini.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, he's known for writing The Kite Runner.
Yes,
and this was kind of it's not really a sequel, but it's a similar type story. But I love that book. I think I've read it around 15 times, and each time I just fall more in love.
Wow.
My book is like highlighted, it's bookmarked, it's written all over. That's probably one of my favorite books.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. 15 times?
50. I know.
That's amazing. I only have a couple of books that I've reread, but yeah, books are just incredible. Like they're probably the best thing in this world.
Yes, I completely agree.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Tori. Oh, wait a minute. Before we go there, how can our audience find you, and how can they help you with whatever you're doing in your...
Well, if you would like to follow me, my Instagram is Tiny But Mighty Scientist, all lowercase letters. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, my name is BG Quintana. So BGQUINTANA. And I don't have a blog or anything like that, but I wish to be more involved in the STEM squad. So if you have any questions, like Prasha said, ask them on the Facebook group, and maybe I'll go on and help answer some of them.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Tori.
Yes, no, thank you so very much.
And that was Tori with her amazing STEM story. Please use the links in the episode notes to follow this tiny but mighty scientist. If you like our show, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. That'll help us reach more audience. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.